Hey guys, so we're out here on Tillamook Bay. We're on a pier. It's at night, and we're going to do a little bit of crabbing. One pot down, that's it. So you can see we have our bait, our chicken legs in the bait box, and then above and to the right of that, we have our bait ball, which is just a pickleball with a rag stuffed in there, and the rag has been infused with Procure crab attractant, and that's an experiment. We're going to see if that'll help it out. So when we throw these pots into the water, whether it's off a pier or a boat or whatever, we really want these pots to be on a pretty flat surface. Sandy bottom is best. Dungeness crab live on the sandy bottom. You know, if there's some eelgrass around there, all the better. And even red rock crab, who do live in rocks to a large extent, are still going to be able to get in your trap better if it's on sandy bottom, and they will venture out into the sand. So, but we're looking for a sandy bottom ideally here. Now, one problem, of course, is that at night especially, but even in the daytime, when you put those pots in the water, you can't see where they landed. You can't see them on the bottom. If it's in really shallow water in the daytime, maybe you can see, but that tells you that you're not really in a good spot for crabbing anyway. It's just they're not going to be in that shallow very often. You might get a few, but you know they're probably going to be small, and you're probably not going to get too many. So here we go. We're sending this guy down in the water with the GoPro. Sometimes we just throw these off, but with the GoPro, we're a little bit more gentle, and we just kind of lower it in there. So there it is. Going down there at bubbles and bait. You can see everything. It's very cool. We're about to catch some crab, but oh no, we landed on a big old waterlogged log is what it appears to be. It moved a little bit, so it's not super, super heavy, but that's where we landed on, and that is not good. You can see how this pot is sort of suspended in the water column a little bit on this log, and the doors are on the sides. You can't see them from the video right here, but the doors are all on the edges of the trap, and those are going to be suspended in the water. It would take an acrobat of a crab and a very, very hungry crab to get in this pot. So it's fortunate that we have the GoPro on there because you learn, you say, okay, you got to be careful, but you can't see it live, so it makes it difficult that way. I do know, even though this was a light-looking log, that I would not throw it in that part of the pier. I would not drop it gently in that part of the pier again, because when you put it down here, I mean, this was down here for 30 minutes or so, and of course there was not a single crab in there. And it wasn't until after we looked at the video that we said, oh, duh, no wonder there wasn't any crabs. They couldn't get in there, even if they could smell it. There was probably some crabs down there at the bottom smelling that chicken and maybe the bait bag, but the bait ball, but they, if there was, they certainly couldn't get to their dinner. So it's very helpful to have the camera to see it. It's just in hindsight, sort of. So here we'll just speed it up for the rest of the time that it was in the water, and you can see we just didn't get any action. We didn't have any chance of having any action. So helpful, would be nice to know right away, but yeah, no crabs on this trip. So what we're trying to do here is obviously to catch crab, but beyond that, what we're trying to do is we're trying to learn how to become better at catching crab. So with this type of video here, what can we glean? Maybe we can glean that we found a bad spot. If we're going to crab on this pier, that's a spot to stay away from. And we could come back here and try this a week or two or a month later in the same spot with the camera to see if that thing still seems to be there. Another thing that we might learn from this last video is something about pot duration, drop duration. How long do we want to set it down there for? Was 30 minutes too long, or were you just risking it by setting it down there in maybe a bad spot for 30 minutes? I think the answer to that is probably no. Most people drop a pot for longer than 30 minutes. If it's a ring, that's a different story, but the pots usually go longer. But it is something to at least consider, long, short, and that might be something that we could learn from this particular video. So on this video, we were trying to learn how to crab better. On this next clip, it's a little different. We're going to try to learn how to film better so that we can crab better. Because in a moment here, you'll see when it switches to the next video, you'll see what happens when we drop this pot. And you can see how much information we can get from this drop to help us. And well, this is what we saw. So we're down here in the black. The camera's on, the camera's filming, but the light wasn't working. So if your light is dead and you're down very far at all in the murky waters of the bay or the ocean, it's not going to be pretty. So like the drop from the last clip, this sat down there for a long time. At least this time it could catch some crab. We just couldn't see anything. But as you'll see in a moment, we are pulling the pot up. And as we pull the pot up, the sunlight comes through and we can see. And we did end up with a pretty good little jag of crabs there. I think we had 3 keepers in that pot. Now, 3 keepers is a decent pot for sure. It's by no means a record, but it's a good number. But we had a lot of activity, and that's always gratifying. You see there's quite a few animals. There's a lot of small ones in there, and maybe a few females. But we just didn't get to watch them come into the pot or see what they did when they were in the pot. So that's something that we can learn from, say, hey, well, we need to make sure that light is on there, it's charged, and that will help us learn stuff. So on this next clip, we have light, we have a flat sandy bottom, and we get activity, but there are still some things that we can learn. There are always things that we can learn. So let's take a look and see what we can learn this time. So this time we have a different kind of bait. These are razor clams. These are some broken razor clams that we got. We ate most of the clams, but we had some left over. And razor clams are, for a lot of people, think they're the best bait for crabs out there. A little harder to get than some other baits, but a lot of people say they're the best. So we're going to drop this guy in and see what happens. So this is a really good kind of bottom to land on. If you really had your way, maybe you'd say you land on a little bit of eelgrass, but this is good sandy bottom. It's very flat. No rocks, no logs, not muddy. Sometimes you get muddy and then the visibility can get kind of bad and get cloudy, and that's not ideal either. But this is a really nice bottom right here. So we fast forwarded this about 2 minutes. Didn't take the crabs too long to start coming in, but we fast forwarded about 2 minutes and they start coming in. Some initial things to learn from here. One of the things is the camera angle could be much better. It could be sitting back, showing the bait box in the middle of the camera. So that's something that could be learned from this and fixed from this. And then you'll see pretty soon there are some other things that are less than ideal anyway. Now watch this crab on the left here with his right claw. He goes in there. Well, he jumps first a little bit, but then he grabs onto a pretty good piece of clam. He lets go for a second, but then he grabs onto it again, or he grabs onto another one. Look what he comes out with. He comes out with a big old piece of meat, a big old piece of very valuable razor clam. It should not be that easy for him to do that. It's just that was too easy. And now if he's big enough, if he's a keeper, it may end up being fine. But you want to make it a little harder for them to tear up your bait, to eat all your bait. And you can see this other guy on the right. He has a pretty good piece of clam in his claw too. Right here, they're tearing up. This is way too easy for the best bait out there. So kind of a side note here, we have been crabbing on the Oregon coast for quite a number of years. Used to be all off the piers, now we go off the boat and the piers some too. But what we don't have experience in is shooting videos and editing videos, sound, all that sort of stuff. So if you have any critiques, criticisms, comments, we sure appreciate any information that you have that would help us with the next video. And we are going to do more videos, a lot of them with sort of the experimental things in mind. It's always fun to try new things, see what works and what doesn't. So appreciate that. You can see right in the middle of the bait box there's that one razor clam foot or neck that's sticking way up there. It's kind of crazy to me that these crabs didn't just see that and start pinching that and go for that. They're working on that stuff, but that seems to be a pretty prime piece up there that they're not going for some reason, and I think they will eventually, but it seems pretty obvious to me. And that guy just snagged a nice piece. This guy right in front of us here, He is chowing on a big old piece. I think these crabs are in heaven for a few more minutes here, and then the ones that get released will probably stay in heaven. But look at him. He is just chomping down on that guy. It may be just even almost too big, too much for him to work on really quickly. So this guy in front of us, he's working hard on that big old chunk, and he's got a nice piece of meat there. And this bully comes over, and look what he does. He just takes it right away from him. And the little guy's just like, "Hey, hey, what happened? What are you doing?" So really, the thing to learn from this, the camera angle is certainly one thing, but the putting those clams into a bait bag or a tighter mesh bait box or something like that would be pretty important because they are just going through that bait. I have never seen crabs get that big pieces of the most prime bait there is. I mean, chicken. We've seen a lot of videos of crabs working on chicken, and chicken just doesn't come off in those big pieces usually like that. So these are some, for now anyway, very, very happy crabs, big chunks of meat. But that is not something I want to give away. I don't want to give away the bait so fast. Uh, Although we did get a couple of keepers in this pot, so it ended up being all right. But we could have preserved our bait better still. And now the jig is just about up. You can see that start to go, and now they're being pulled up. And it looks like he's still trying to eat. And they do. They sometimes they'll eat all the way up, and they'll eat even when they're on the boat or on the pier. But they're kind of scrambling now. And you can see as we're pulling this up, it's going quite a bit sideways. You can see the ocean floor there, the bay floor, the bed, and now it starts maybe going up a little bit. It's still pretty low, but anyway, that's just we have a long rope, and sometimes when you have a 50 or 60-foot rope, then and you're in the bay in 15 feet of water, that's what happens. And there are things that you can do to try and alleviate that, but it's not a big deal, and it wasn't dragging on the bottom, so. Ended up okay, and then you can see now it's pulling straight up, and it's going to come out, pop out pretty soon here. So we did get a couple of keepers off of that one, so that was successful. We had we landed in a good spot. We had reasonably good filming. The light was there. The camera needs to be adjusted towards the middle of the pot more, but some things to learn. The bait also, put it in a bait bag. inside that bait box, even make it a little harder. They'll still smell it, they'll still work on it, but they just won't empty it so much. So you could put it down, 3 or 4 or 5 times and you'd still be good. So anyway, those are some things that we learned today. So to wrap this up, I'll just say that we are new to the filming and the editing end of this, at least this type of filming and editing. We're not new to the crabbing, the clamming, and the fishing, that sort of thing, but we love to do that stuff, so we're going to share that stuff. Right now it's going to be a little bit rough as far as the editing and the filming, that sort of thing, but if you liked it, hit the like button. If you'd like to subscribe, please do. We'll have a lot of we're going to lean towards, in the near future, more experiments with different kinds of bait for both crabbing and fishing, experiments with clamming, all kinds of things. We just want to learn and have fun and experiment. So thanks for watching. We appreciate it, guys.